We're in Matthew chapter 2, and this is part 4 of our study on the curse of Christmas. There were certain politicians years back that would always advertise their campaigns by saying, in your heart, you know he's right. And as I'm teaching these things, and as you're gyrating and so forth, I just simply would say to you, eyeball to eyeball, in your heart, you know I'm right. Regardless of how much you might fuss and fume about the truth that I'm teaching, you know I'm right. And but I'm not saying this just simply that I can personally be right. I mean, what satisfaction is that if I am right and I teach you and it makes no impact in your life? Because I have a pastor's heart, I care about you and what you think regarding the Word and Jesus Christ. That's my purpose for existing. Aside from being a Christian and wanting to mature, my God-given gift is to bring you to maturity. So I care about what you think. And so, therefore, I labor to bring things like this. Someone had said, well, you must have labored a long time. You don't realize the years, literally the hundreds of hours that have gone forth and the constant repetition in my own mind so that I can stand up here and recall from memory the history of these people so that I don't have to look down at my notes all of the time to get it to you as compact as I can, concise, and yet as impactful as I can, because that's what I want to do. I want to make an impression on your mind, as has been prayed, and I appreciate the prayer. Me too. For years, being brought up in a certain church and then straying from the church and having a totally different view of Christmas. But if you find out what the Word says really, you have to alter your view and your so-called Christmas practices. Now, we have gone from the history of the family of Herod, the 4-generation curse, to the Scriptures, to the narrative of the Herodian family. And with the time we have this morning, and then tonight if we don't finish, we're going to talk about the Herod family in relationship to their attitude toward Christmas and Christ. The reason that we do this is simply because this story was put here so that we might understand that God is serious about this business. We tend to read these colorful comic books about Christmas, and we tend to see it on the television and all of the advertisements, and we think that Christmas is just some sort of mythical story for a certain time of year to make our children feel good. And may I say that Christmas is actually the age-old angelic conflict of who's going to rule this universe. That's Christmas. And it is a life and death, throat to throat, eyeball to eyeball, toe to toe struggle between the forces of God and the forces of the devil. That's what it's about. Not some sort of cozy feeling before chestnuts roasting on an open fire and the white Christmas out there. It probably wasn't even that when Jesus was born. The whole story's mixed up and messed up as far as the world is concerned. But if we look at the truth of Christmas, it's going to change your life. And if it doesn't, it's going to alter your life in another way. How's that? Every single Herod that rejected Christmas and rejected Jesus Christ died in a 4-generation curse. The 5th generation died as lava engulfed them. Fire and brimstone engulfed their living flesh as they died and went to a burning hell forever. But Christmas is a serious thing. It is not frivolous, flippant, with all of the gaiety. Now, as I say this, I better stop here. Don't you dare say, Pastor, you've robbed me of Christmas. I don't even enjoy it anymore. Well, I could say bah humbug, but I won't because of my concern and my dignity of the clergy. I am concerned about you, and we're not fanatics. I'm not saying don't enjoy Christmas, exchange gifts, love one another, honor your children, honor your parents. I'm not saying that at all. Please do it. But do it in the proper spirit of Christmas. Do you think that the world out there honors Christ at Christmas? If you do, we've got 6 billion people in the world. I mean, think of it. You've got Buddhists who honor their ancestors and Buddha. You've got the Hindus who honor the cow god and Kali and the other gods that they worship. You've got the Muslims who honor Muhammad and Allah. I mean, all of those people are here in America celebrating Christmas. You've even got the Jews, and most of them that own the stores are saying, hallelujah for Christmas, you know. But what does it mean for them? It just means money in their cash register. Jesus Christ is another historical figure that they could care less about. Read the columns of your local rabbi. He's more interested in Hanukkah than he is Christmas. Now, I'm saying that those people are blasphemers, they are idolaters, and I go down, and I will go down and face my Savior, as well as you, in condemning the world for their attitude toward Christmas. Used to be my attitude, no more. Because when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, verse 1, in the days of Herod the king, we've already seen this beautiful person who became a monster because of his attitude toward Christmas. There came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Now the significance is this, as I said. He had been pronounced King of the Jews 3 times by Rome. And what do you mean, King of the Jews? I'm King of the Jews. But he was into the business of squelching rebellion by killing his own children and anybody else who got in his way. Antipas from Doris, killed. Aristobulus and Alexander, strangled to death. Herod Philip, banished to Rome, and so forth. And time and again, Herod would kill his wives, his kids, his friends, and anybody around him that he suspicioned of trying to take his throne. Now here come wise men saying, we want the King of the Jews. Now can you see what he's doing? So he doesn't, he plays to their ignorance for a little bit here. We've seen his star in the east. When Herod heard these things, he was troubled. Interesting word, troubled. Paraso in the Greek. It means to disturb inwardly. He was beside himself on the inside. King of the Jews, who have seen his star. I've heard this someplace before. Call the Sanhedrin and the high priest. They brought them in. Where does it say in the Bible that Messiah is to be born? Bethlehem. Oh, yes, Bethlehem. That's not too far from where we are in Jerusalem. I'll tell you what. You guys go and find the babe and bring him word back to me. At Christmas, Herod was perplexed or troubled. Why is Christmas the way that it is today? Because the world's troubled at the birth of Christ. You see, if he was really the Messiah, then they owe him allegiance. If he's really King of Kings and Lord of Lords, they owe him worship. If he's really Emmanuel, God among us, they owe him respect and honor. But rather than do that, they simply trouble themselves. So to get rid of a guilty conscience that constantly perplexes them, who is Christ really? We'll just keep him a babe, but we'll surround him with all these other things to make us forget who he really is, and that's where we are in Christmas. You ask the average person what's Christmas all about, and they will not know. And even those Christians who come close still cannot comprehend and understand what we're even doing today. All of the interplay and intrigue of history and Scripture and why these men were in certain places and why they did what they did. Herod wanted to be king of the Jews. And the true king of the Jews comes, and so he tries to kill him. Tell me something. Just in your own mind, don't answer out. But tell me something. What does Antichrist want to become? King of the Jews. Where is the ultimate goal of Satan in placing his man Antichrist? He, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Where's the temple? In Jerusalem. Who sits in the throne in the temple? Well, Messiah, King of the Jews. Do you see the interplay here? Herod wants to be king of the Jews, and he was by Roman proclamation. But the true king of the Jews came, and he wanted to kill him. Where does Antichrist want to be? He wants to be king of the Jews. What is Christmas about? May I just make an observation? In my opinion, Christmas is about Antichrist's birth. That's what it's about. It's not about the true birth of the Son of God. We found out the time of his birth and how his birth took place and so forth. And the Christmas story is all jumbled together. We found out the truth about it. The world doesn't know it. So, it says, we're here in verse number 7. Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men. You see, he was afraid of a Jewish revolt. If indeed this person was born and all of the Jews were saying, he's king of the Jews. Little did he know that the Jews themselves would reject their Messiah. But here is an Idumean, an Arab, who's king of the Jews, who wants to get rid of the true king of the Jews, but keep it silent with the other bloodline Jews, lest there be a revolt in his kingdom. Now Herod was a smart man. He had already fought for 3 years against the house of Hashmon. For the second time he was pronounced king of the Jews. He didn't want to go through that again. He inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. Now why? If he happened to miss the babe with the wise men, if they tricked him, he wanted to know the age group of the kids so that he could kill them. And by the way, it was, you talk about a miracle of Christmas, it was an absolute miracle that Mary and Joseph and the wise men ever got out. Why? Because Herod used the flag system from the mountains. He was one of the first ones to build fortresses, and he had a signal corps so that he could know anybody who was traveling, anything that was happening in a 275-mile range in a matter of 2 hours. With the flag corps, the signal corps. He was the first man to develop it. And all of the mountains, Masada, who put that up there? Herod put it up there. Why? It's one of his fortresses and palaces and so forth. And it's where on the southern border he could know what was going on. Enemies approaching, he could signal that right up from mountain to mountain with his signal corps. He was one of the first ones to use it. And that's why he knew. It took a miracle of God. But Herod knew these guys will never escape because from the mountains I'm watching these wise men. You know, and it probably wasn't a small caravan. It was a miracle of God. That's a true miracle of Christmas, by the way, that they ever escaped Herod. Now, what did he want to do? Verse 8, go search diligently for the young child. When you found him, bring me word again that I may come and worship him. Worship. Proskuneo is the Greek word. What does it mean? To humble oneself and bow in recognition and honor. What a liar Herod was. What a liar the world is. They sing about worshiping Jesus Christ. Churches will be full on Christmas Sunday morning because there will be Christmas plays and programs and all of the other nonsense but where are the people that bow down to worship him? You know what it actually is? It goes back to an ancient word that has to do with a dog coming to its master. Now, those of you that have been raised around a dog or have a dog, you can understand that when that dog gets in trouble and you call it to heel, what does it usually do? It comes down there and it rolls around, you know, and its tail's wagging just a little bit because it's just not sure if you're on friendly terms or not, and it's just rolling on the ground right at your feet, you know. Please forgive me, it says as it looks up. You're my master. I'm helpless. I beg your mercy. I'm just a dog. That's what it means to worship. To come before Jesus Christ and say, you're my master and Lord. I owe you everything. Forgive me. You're my Savior. To bow down and grovel in the dirt and say, I'm not worthy of you. I adore you and worship you. Show me, even among grace believers, where that is true. That's what the word worship means. He feigned worship. But note what it says in verse number 11. They were come to the house and saw the young child, and they fell down and worshiped him. Herod pretended to do it. He was sincere. They did it. They were genuine. Yes, sir. In my heart, I humble myself to you, and as a babe. And note this. They had opened their treasures. To whom? To Jesus Christ. On the true meaning of Christmas, on the first Christmas, it was Christ who got the presents. They got presents too. What was the present? As many as received him, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God. They gave him their presence and believed on him. He gave them everlasting life. Nothing material. He gave them the true value, spiritual things. Now, I'm not saying that material is wrong. They gave material things to Christ and so forth. But what does the Word say then regarding Herod? Verse 13. And when the wise men were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and be there until I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. The word is apolomai. Apo is the preposition of ultimate source. The other word has to do with taking one's spoil. It is a word that we translate loss or lost in the Bible. It's actually a word of battle. We've studied here the doctrine of Operation Footstool before, why Jesus Christ uses people, uses his enemies to march to the throne. Okay? It's the same concept for Herod by using that word, apolomai. He wants to kill the babe in battle. It's killing in battle. But then to take the property, that which belongs to this soldier in battle, and take it for oneself. Now, what was he going to do? He was going to kill Jesus Christ and take his title, take his land, take his people for himself. He was going to be king and not Jesus Christ. Isn't that what we do today? Rather than actually accept the claims of Christ upon our lives and take what he gives us, we want to neutralize him and take it despite who he is. That's what Herod wants to do. And we see in the very Greek word in the testimony of God, he wants to come to spoil the child. He wants to come to Christ's Christmas tree and take his goodies for himself. That's the word. Now, we all know that Herod died a horrible death. We talked about that last time. So we need to move on now to another fellow. Mark chapter 6. Now, probably with our time, this is the last fellow we're going to look at this morning, and we'll see the last two tonight. This fellow is known as Herod Antipas. He too is the son of Herod the Great through a gal by the name of Malthake. She was a Samaritan. So as you see, there's a lot of intermingling here. Who are the Samaritans? The Samaritans were purebred Jews who went up to Assyria whenever Sennacherib came and deported the people up there, the northern 10 tribes. Some of them stayed there, some of them intermarried, some of them came back home, but they were now a mixed breed, and they were called the Samaritans. Well, Herod the Great, who was an Arab from Esau, married a Samaritan, and from that came the guy Jesus calls the fox. Now, why did he call him the fox? What does a fox do? He's cunning. He will rob nests. Get the picture? If there is a babe in the nest left unprotected, it doesn't matter where the mom is unless it's close by. That fox doesn't have any compulsion about eating the little chicks in the nest, the little birds there, or the little animals left unprotected. That's why Jesus Christ called him a fox. Robber of nests. Cunning. Stealthy. All right, this is the guy. When Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee, actually, he had now the western third from the shores of Galilee over. This is Herod Antipas. He ruled over Galilee. What's the significance of this? Simply that Herod Antipas took over shortly after his brother Archelaus was deposed. And then he took over in northern Galilee. Well, what's the significance about that? When Jesus Christ came back from Egypt, he went to Nazareth and lived in the city of Nazareth. He grew up under this fellow. Jesus Christ is called the Galilean. Who was king of the Jews in Galilee? Herod Antipas, the fox. Jesus Christ grew up right under his nose for years, and Herod Antipas, even though he was Jewish by way of religion, could not tell that the Messiah was amongst him. Grew up under his nose. So did John the Baptist. King Herod heard of him, for his name was spread abroad, and he said that John the Baptist was risen from the dead. Now, why was he interested in John the Baptist? Verse 16. It's John, whom I beheaded. He has risen from the dead. Only you don't know the history behind this verse. In Herod's palace, John the Baptist haunted Herod Antipas the fox. He knew he had done wrong in beheading him. He respected John, but he feared his wife, Herodias, more. So he killed John the Baptist. He silenced the forerunner of Christ. Now, history tells us, you've heard of Charles Dickens, where Scrooge is, a Christmas Story and so forth. And Scrooge had the ghost of Christmas past. Here's the ghost of Christmas past. Herod would in a fit, go through his palace screaming, "It's John the Baptist returning!" And in fear, "It's John the Baptist! It's John the Baptist returning!" And history records that, not just in the Word, but that's why it mentions it here. Because Herod said, "It's John, I beheaded him. He's risen from the dead. It's John the Baptist, the ghost of Christmas past. He's returned to haunt me." That's the significance. For Herod himself had sent forth and laid hold upon John and bound him in prison. Mistake one. For Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife, for he had married her. John said, "It's unlawful for you to have her." Therefore, Herodias had a quarrel against him and would have killed him, but she could not. Now, here's a Merry Christmas for you. You know what she's going to ask for in just a little bit? The head of John the Baptist as a Christmas present. What do I mean? Well, let's give you a little bit of history here as we're reading through, and then we'll see how Salome and Herodias connived against Herod to get him to kill John. By the way, this is just an observation because I've had many questions on that of law and order, chain of command authority, husband and wife, and that sort of thing, and killing. Now, as Christians, we do not murder. Thou shalt not kill as thou shalt not murder. But as Christians, there comes a bona fide time when you can kill. For example, capital punishment. Can you kill? You bet your life. In the army, there wasn't no person here who wouldn't have said, "I hope Saddam Hussein gets killed." If you did, I'm going to check your temperature. Check your temperature. Did you want Saddam Hussein to get it? Come on. I swear. They say the Presbyterians are dead. That's I think Grace folks are dead. You bet your life. Did you want our guys to get killed? Well, if you did, there's something the matter with you. I wanted them all bombed out, and I wanted them to get Saddam and face the firing squad. Don't even try. Put him up and pow. He's already guilty. He's already up to his ears in guilt. Shoot him. Get him out of there. But Merry Christmas to y'all. Sorry. Do you realize that if Saddam Hussein had won, your children would be suffering because of the squelch of oil on the world economy? Your kids would be suffering. Did you want him to get it, or would you rather our guys get it? It is legitimate to kill. Why? Because if we don't, they're gonna. What do you think the mark of the beast is? You don't take the mark. What do they do to you? Well, it's just a little comic book, right? I mean, the book of Revelation is a little comic book, and they're going to kill you. That's what they're going to do. They'll behead you. It's a life and death struggle, and that's what Christmas is. Who's going to rule your life? Who's going to control the world? And note, Herod feared John, verse 20, because he was a just man. But when a convenient day would come, Herod on his birthday made a supper. He invited the captains and the chief estates of Galilee. He was the king over Galilee. And when the daughter of the said Herodias came in and danced and pleased Herod, and them that sat with him, the king said to the damsel, Ask me whatsoever thou wilt. He sware unto her, To the half of my kingdom. Verse 24. She went forth and asked her mother, What shall I ask? And she said, The head of John the Baptist. And she came straightway with haste to the king and asked, saying, I will that thou give me by and by in a charger. Now, a charger is actually a silver platter. Here is the Christmas gift from Herod Antipas to Salome, is actually his birthday, and from Salome to her mother Herodias. What was it? Well, John said, Fine, if that's what you want. He sent the executioners in. He lopped off the head of John the Baptist in prison. They picked it up by its hair, put it on the silver platter, put a covering over it, and served it to Herodias. And when they lifted that lid and Herodias looked down at the head of John the Baptist, she would never again, the most beautiful woman in the ancient world at that time, prettier than Cleopatra or anyone else who had ever lived or was living at that time, she started to get old and her life began to fail. And she would die with her husband, starving to death in the Pyrenees Mountains. Why? Because her husband did not stand up and say, I'm going to keep the law and order and not be run by a gal. Okay, now, what does it say? Verse number 26. And the king was exceeding sorry. Interesting word in the Greek, and I'm going to have to hurry because I want to get to another portion regarding him. It means to be emotionally sorry. All of the Herods were geniuses, and when it came to external things, they had moxie. But when it came to life, they got emotional, and it means to be sorry emotionally. You'll note it does not say, and he repented. That'd be a different Greek word. It says he was sorry. You see, if he really repented, he would have said, whoa, wait 1 second. That is unjust, and that doesn't come within my jurisdiction. Unless John is truly guilty, I cannot execute him, you see. And he wasn't guilty of anything aside from hurting the feelings of Herodias. But see, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And so therefore, rather than face the fury of the wrath of God, he focused his attention upon the wrath of Herodias instead of putting her in her place and telling Salome, look, my promise doesn't include the head of John the Baptist. You have to understand that. But he was exceeding sorry for his oath's sake, and note, and for the sakes of those that ate with him. So he didn't reject her. The world, peer pressure. Oh, if we don't celebrate Christmas in this way, what will people think? Oh, if I don't give her the head of John the Baptist, what will my friends think? Who cares? God would have thought him a just man. He just said that John was just and holy. What about Herod Antipas? For fear of Herodias. Immediately the king sent an executioner and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded him in prison. He brought the head on the charger, gave it to the damsel, and the damsel to her mom. Let's turn now to Luke chapter 27. I take you now 2.5 years later in history. Luke chapter 27. Luke chapter 23 is what I'm going to want. 23. There is no 27. My handwriting and my eyes are going bad. I find no fault in him. You found 2 flaws. That's all. All right. Verse 6. Now, please stay with me until the end of this. Pilate heard that Jesus was of Galilee. Is the man a Galilean? Yes. As soon as he knew that he belonged unto Herod's jurisdiction. Herod Antipas. Now remember, Pontius Pilate was the procurator of Judea. It originally belonged to Archelaus, the ethnarch. Now, what happened was they saw that Archelaus was such an inept governor that Rome simply brought one of its own down so that you would have ethnarch. Ethnos in the Greek means a race, governor of a race, and a governor of the nation or the government itself. And that's what Pilate was, eventually became. He wasn't the first. But eventually, Archelaus was so bad, he was deposed, and they just simply kept Pontius Pilate as leader or one of the like sort of procurator. Now, Herod came down because he was a Jew. And it was Passover time. He was actually going through the motions of ancient Judaism and had the fulfillment of ancient Judaism, Jesus Christ, right before him. As soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself was at Jerusalem at that time. So he came from his capital there in Galilee down to Jerusalem for the Passover and so forth. When Herod saw Jesus, he was exceeding glad, for he desired a long season to see him, because he had heard many things of him, and he hoped to have seen some miracle done by him. You're a magician, Jesus. Perform some miracle. I'm here, Jesus, and I can let you off the hook by way of crucifixion if you'll just placate my emotions, stimulate me, entertain me, Jesus. Note what it says, verse 9. He questioned with him many words. Imperfect linear action start, he kept on asking him, but imperfect linear action start, he kept on answering him nothing. But here's one word and another word we'll see in this, and then we'll quit. Apokrinomai is the word for answer. In the English translation, it doesn't have the impact that it does in the Greek. Krinomai means to judge critically. Apo means from the ultimate source. Translation, he judged him from the ultimate source of himself as nothing. So he didn't talk to him. You see, Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine. Give that which is holy unto dogs. He said, Herod Antipas is a fox. That's close enough. That's in the family. He didn't talk to him. Here is a man where perhaps if Jesus just reasoned with him, oh no, apokrinomai. He judged him from the ultimate source of himself and said in himself, you're nothing but a lowly dog. I'm not going to dignify your being by answering you. Merry Christmas, Herod Antipas. You wanted to silence my forerunner, John the Baptist? You wanted to listen to your wife over me? That's fine. You're going to face the second generation family curse, and you're going to starve to death in obscurity. He answered him not a word. So, the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him. So Herod, note this phrase, with his men set him at naught. Get the picture? Jesus on the inside said, Herod, you're nothing. Herod on the outside said, Jesus, you're nothing. Herod on the outside said, I'm king of the Jews. Jesus on the inside knew he was. So here we have two men, one incessantly talking because he was nervous, kept on asking these questions. And here was a man who remained cool, calm, and collected and said, Herod, you're destined for hell. I'm not going to dignify you. So Herod turned around and said, fine, I'm going to make you nothing. I'm going to reduce you. I'm going to make you sorry you ever lived, Jesus. With his men of war, set him at naught. Mocked him, arrayed him in a gorgeous robe. Mocked is the word that we want. Empaizo is the Greek. Now I want to show you what Herod Antipas did to Jesus Christ with his soldiers. Christmas story is not a pretty story because it ends up with the cross. As you know, other gospel writers tell us that Jesus Christ was blindfolded. So when it says mocked him, here's what they were doing right from the original languages. They would blindfold Jesus Christ and say, prophesy who it was that hit you. Only there's more to it than that. They empaizoed him. They mocked him. A soldier who had already hit him on the right side would feign like he was coming again at him on the right side. Jesus Christ was human. Like any human being, he would brace on this side for the coming punch. You see, but he was blindfolded. He couldn't see what was happening. So while with all of the commotion, they were mocking and yelling. He couldn't hear, but the guy would yell close enough so that Jesus Christ would simply be ready to take the punch. And a soldier on the other side would trick him. Bam! Hit him on the other side. And say, now Jesus, prophesy who hit you. You knew what was coming the first time because they yelled. Now in the silence. And they mocked him in that fashion. I'll tell you, I wouldn't give one thin dime to the practice of Christmas the way that it is today. Because these same people, both Jews and Gentiles, are the sons and daughters of the people who both tried to kill Christ as a baby and who absolutely mutilated him as a man on the cross. Christmas is serious. And that's what they did to Jesus Christ. And he was the son of Herod the Great who tried to kill him. Prophesy, Jesus. And they tricked him. Here came a soldier. I'm going to hit you. Jesus, I'm going to hit you. And he braced for the punch, blindfolded, and a guy would blindside him on the other side. That's what it means to mock him. And that's what they did.